see with that, it's on you, Natalie.
7:30. All right, call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Eastward Alderman Rob Foster. Eastward Alderman Mark Bell.
Here.
Mayor Natalie Burnett.
Here.
Westward Alderman Vicky Montgomery.
Here.
Westward Alderman Stacy Lee.
Here. All right. And if you would please stand for a moment of silent prayer and reflection.
Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic
to the of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, and due to the coronavirus pandemic and pursuant to executive order, we are doing this meeting both virtually and in person. Elected officials and certain city staff have the opportunity to choose their modality, and the public provides a Zoom link to participate. We'll move to the minutes for December 10th, 2020, our last meeting. They were included in your packet. Do we have any corrections or notes that need to be addressed? If not, I'll take a motion for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, next, we have quite a bit of expenditures you see in here. It's been a while since we've met. Monica is not able to be with us tonight. She is on a much-deserved break. So if there are any items in here you have significant questions with, Sam can try to answer, or we can peel them out of the approval. Give you a moment to look through the pack. And when you're ready, I'll take a motion for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Followed by departmental reports. You have our report from utility users. Then you have several pages in here that are reports of various licensing that Karen has issued since we last met, along with a report from the fire department. Are there any questions or items that needed to be discussed? Okay, if not, we will continue. Next item on here is a mayoral appointment. I am reappointing Jim Hartley as our representative on the Missouri University Extension Center. And board, I look to you for approval.
Move to approve.
Second. First and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Thank you very much. And now on to COVID-19 update. And I see Michael was able to join us. Mr. Taylor?
Yes, good evening. How's everybody?
Doing well.
So, yeah, we've got a lot tonight in this report. A lot has gone on. I've said for a while that I was looking forward to an evening where I could come and present good news to the board. And I think tonight is the first of hopefully many of those reports. So Just starting off, hopefully everybody got a copy. Item 4 on there, the Webster County COVID-19 Task Force has been working hard to obtain doses of the vaccine and facilitate the vaccinating as many of our citizens as desire to be vaccinated. Dr. Robinson and his facility, Marshfield Family Clinic, in conjunction with the Webster County COVID-19 Task Force, applied to be a vaccination site in Webster County. Dr. Robinson ordered doses of the vaccine and has now received the first of those doses. These doses are limited by the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services to be administered to Phase 1A persons, healthcare providers primarily. It is the intention of the task force to continue to order and provide community access to vaccination as the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services moves through the different phases of vaccine release. Those who are interested in receiving the vaccine and fit into Phase 1A category may send their contact information to covid@webstercountymo.gov. Some things that happened today, something happening tomorrow, a vaccination site for Phase 1A eligible persons, patient-facing healthcare providers, will be held in Marshfield tomorrow, the 15th. Those who fit into that phase and are interested in receiving may also contact the task force if they haven't already at covid@webstercountymo.gov. That clinic is going to be held at Dr. Robinson's clinic just because it's going to be of a smaller size. We received news today that vaccine phase 1B, tier 2, so high-risk individuals, will begin on Monday, January 18th. So this will be for people that are over age 65 or have medical conditions that make them high risk. So that will begin potentially on Monday. So that's going to open up vaccine to a lot more people, which is very very good news. And then I think there'll be some additional phases roll out here over the next month, weeks to month, and ultimately ending up in the general population. Talking about the hospitals, Cox, and this was as of the 12th, because this report actually is going to the commission. So Cox had 121 admitted, Mercy had 96. Of that, 10 of those patients were from Webster County. Hospital capability score come up just a little bit. It came up to 5.1. It was down around 4.5. Testing is still ongoing. We did a drive-through testing on the 21st of December. We tested 142 persons, 33 were positive, indicating a 23.4 positivity rate. We also did a drive-through test on January 11th at the fairgrounds. Test went down a little bit. We tested 56, 16 positive results, which indicated a 28.5% positivity rate. And then we have another drive-through test coming up on January 25th from 9 to 11, not 9 to 1, at the Webster County Fairgrounds. No new recommendations from the task force at this point. Current vaccine phase, we're Phase 1A and 1B, and 1B, I didn't speak of that earlier. That covers more emergency providers, emergency management. It also covers public works, so that may be something of particular interest to the city. So that 1B is also open now. 1A and 1B are open as of noon today. And then the next tier will be Monday. So long-term care facility residents and staff, healthcare workers, patient and non-patient facing, first responders, emergency management, emergency services, and public works are the primary categories covered right now prior to Monday. Current situation, and I did go ahead and update these today in the local statistics anyway. CDC date and Missouri is still from the 12th. So CDC reported 22,322,956 cases in the United States. Been a total of 373,167 deaths thus far. Missouri DHSS is reporting 424,986 cases in Missouri, with 5,951 deaths out of 3,830,281 persons tested. Missouri, 114 of 114 jurisdictions are reporting cases. World Health is reporting 89,416,559 cases worldwide, 1,935,028 deaths in 223 countries, which that again went up a little bit as far as the number of countries. According to Webster County Health Unit, we have had 2,669 cases in Webster County thus far. 198 patients are actively ill, which is a high number, one of the higher we've seen. 92 of which are in the central region, Marshfield region of Webster County. 96 patients has been hospitalized. 2,428 have recovered, and we've had 43 deaths in Webster County related to COVID-19 at this point. So that brings you to your statistic changes. They've increased by, since our last report to you, 613. Active is increased by 136. Quarantined, actually, that number is incorrect, and so please disregard that number. And deaths have increased by 4. The public schools, I went ahead and outlined those out there far as what they're looking like. Not very many positives, thankfully, right now, but you will see that several of the schools have multiple quarantines. State actions since the last briefing. So state actions coordinating and providing guidance for the administration of the COVID-19 vaccines. Expanded the healthcare providers covered in phase 1A, and then opened vaccination phase 1B tier 1. And more to come. County actions, I sent it out. I hope everybody got to see. We put out public information release from the physicians, Dr. Alexander and Dr. Robinson of the task force regarding the COVID-19 vaccine. If anybody wants a copy of that and do not have it, I can certainly get it to you. And then just a couple things under assumptions that are kind of highlights, still increasing in Webster County. Since the last report on December 22nd, our cases have grown by 604. And Marshfield still ranks #1 in the county for positive cases, both active and cumulative. And that's all I was really going to highlight in this report, unless you have some specific questions or concerns that I can address.
Anything from the board? Well, thank you very much, Michael. I know you've been exceptionally busy this week, and I appreciate you taking time to visit with us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
A question for the board on this topic while we're here. Since it looks like that next tier may include some of our employees, would we like to allow our employees who wish to be vaccinated and are eligible to do that during working hours? Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Without use of leave, allow them to leave and get their vaccine during working hours.
Yes.
Certainly.
Okay. Do we need to do that as a vote? Karen, how do you feel with that? I think we're good there. Yeah. So just so the employees know that if they want vaccinated, we'll make sure they get it. Okay. Thank you very much. So normally at the other meetings, I have been providing a second COVID update based on what the health department has been providing. The health department has done some reorganization. They've changed the way they're reporting as well, and I have not worked with them to really get into their numbers. So I do not have a separate report to bring today. But Michael's report was phenomenal as always, and we sure do appreciate the information. I can say on the public school number, where we have 2 that are currently positive in Marshfield, since I work at the university, we tested everybody who came back to campus over the weekend. You either had to bring results back with you or we tested, and we tested them both with PCR and with rapid. Our overall positive rate was just right over 1%. So that's testing the entire population. And it was interesting to go through and to see those results. So I think our school district numbers kind of mimic that with the younger population. If there's nothing else on COVID, we're going to go ahead and go forward to the SKEEP grant.
Just a real brief update on that. This is the grant that we applied for through DNR. It was a $50,000 grant. For our portion of that was going to be $12,500, and so been awaiting on some news from DNR. Actually was in contact with them today, and looks like everything's going to be a go. We're going to push forward with that. Looks like it'll be roughly 3 to 4 weeks before we get the final paperwork back on that, and that we have the notice to proceed. So just a little bit of good news, but I have the agreement on here. That's the agreement that has been sent to DNR for their approval. That's what they're working through and making sure that they agree with everything that's in there. And then they've got some they've got some paperwork on their end to process before they can give us that notice to proceed.
Okay, thank you. We will push this or table this item into our future agenda items. This will go ahead and come back up on the next meeting, even though we do understand it may have to be tabled again, just so that we keep tabs on it. This work is crucial to our ability to determine what growth and development happens from here. So we'll definitely stay on top of that. Okay, from there we have the banking services.
We are, this is an action item for you tonight, just to kind of get that out of the way up front. In your packet, there's Monica, as Natalie said, couldn't be here tonight, but she did give a breakdown. You know, we presented these bids to you all last year, and just an update. From that, cities are, there's only certain time periods throughout the year where we can actually switch banking services. And January, if we choose not to take action tonight, the next opportunity you'll have to do that will be in April. But the spread, what you see on that spreadsheet, it basically boiled down to when you took all of the fees into account and you took in the interest rates into account, there was basically two that kind of rose to the top. And so we took the bids along with we took the bids along with the information back to the finance committee, and we had given them a recommendation. And so when you look at the interest rate, Seymour Bank was just a little bit higher. We currently use Southern Bank. And so I'm not going to say that the city staff is ultimately excited about making the change because it is going to increase the workload on multiple people, not just Monica, but everybody that uses the services as well. But in the end, the interest rate was significant enough that that we recommended to the finance committee to go with Seymour Bank. And Seymour Bank took all that into consideration. They really dove into the weeds some, and that was what their recommendation was as well.
Okay. Do we have any questions about banking bids here?
This is for a 2 year. This is for a 2 year term with an option to renew for an additional 2 years.
If not, I will entertain a motion for approval.
Move to approve.
I move to approve.
Second.
We'll call that a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Accepting there. Yeah. Can't spit it out, but you know what I mean, right? Okay. All right, law enforcement parking.
This is an ordinance that we discussed at a previous meeting, and Sheriff Cole had reached out and he had actually asked about reserving some parking on the square, or just off the square there adjacent to the new justice facility. And so I took what we had talked about in the last meeting. I went back to him and I asked him if he would be open to just starting with the spaces there on the east side of Crittenden there along the building. And he said, absolutely. I said, it's not that the board isn't open to allowing or dedicating both sides, but for right now, I said, we'd really like to just start with that adjacent to your building. And if you see a need, then we can address that in the future. And so since he was on board with that, Karen went ahead and drafted an ordinance for you guys for consideration for tonight, if you guys want to take action on it. And so basically down there in the ordinance, right there next to the ordinance number 1973, it lays out what we're actually, what you guys would be approving. So basically taking from the first parking space north of Crittenden and the intersection of Crittenden and Jefferson, and then running 111 feet north. And that's after that, it starts getting hashed out for their loading zone. And so when I talked to Roy about it, he said, hey, listen, unless you guys just have to have it, he said, I don't care if it's even striped or whatnot for those specific places. He said, I would just like to dedicate that area for law enforcement parking. And so I looked at it and I agree. I don't know that we necessarily need to put 4 spaces in there or try to get 5 in there. They can kind of control that depending on what the size of vehicles that they have in there. And so I talked to Roy a little bit about how we wanted to sign that because, you know, obviously new sidewalk being there, and if we core a hole out of that and then it gets hit and broke off, then we have some issues. And so we're looking at some new sign holders for the square as well for the handicap spaces that we need to put back in now that the square is paved and the sidewalks are done. They're actually spring loaded, and so we're looking at that. Or Roy said he may just want to see about posting it on the side of their building. And so just throwing that out there as an FYI.
Okay. Any questions for Sam on the designated parking area? Okay, looks like we want to move forward, so I'll go ahead and read the bill. Bill number 2021-01, an ordinance adding a schedule to a municipal code of the city of Marshfield, Missouri at Title III Traffic Code, Schedule 7, Law Enforcement Parking Only, Table 12A, Law Enforcement Parking Only. To approve.
Second.
Roll call?
Foster,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Emery,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Second reading. Bill number 2021-01, an ordinance adding a schedule to the municipal code of the city of Marshfield, Missouri at Title III Traffic Code, Schedule 12, Law Enforcement Parking Only, Table 12-A, Law Enforcement Parking Only.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call?
Foster,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Emery,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Thank you. And that'll move us on into new business. And we will start with our on-call advisory services with CMT and Sam.
So I talked to you all about this during budget time. And so for the past several years, we have contracted with CMT, specifically with Scott Hansen for our on-call planning services. Basically some day-to-day with our zoning applications, rezoning, and with, basically all of our planning services. We utilize Scott, and I'll remind you all that the last few years we have budgeted $40,000 for this contract. You will see an additional $10,000 in there this year because there are several issues. Some of them will be front loaded, but with the newly approved growth plan, there are some things in there that we want to be a little more aggressive with. And so that's what the additional $10,000 is in there for.
Okay. Any questions from the board? All right, if not, I will read the bill. Bill number 2021-02, an ordinance authorizing agreement for professional engineering services between the city of Marshfield, Missouri and Crawford Murphy and Tilley Incorporated, CMT, consulting engineers for professional engineering services associated with on-call planning advisory services for 2021.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call?
Foster,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Emery,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Second reading. Bill number 2021-02, an ordinance authorizing an agreement for professional engineering services between the City of Marshfield, Missouri and Crawford, Murphy, and Tilley Incorporated, CMT Consulting, engineers for professional engineering services associated with on-call planning advisory services for 2021.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Foster,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Montgomery,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Thank you all very much. And speaking of the gentleman, Scott, would you like to introduce our next bill?
Sure thing. First, thank you once again, Mayor McNish and members of the Board of Aldermen. CMT really appreciates working with you. I really enjoy working with you and your staff. I think we're making great progress. And I think tonight's ordinance is an example of that. So this initiative was brought forward by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And the concept was that if we were able to use our, maybe be more efficient with our available industrial space, and at the same time enable some uses, those that are less than 1 acre in the industrial district, to perhaps have, use less land, have a reduced back. We might be able to be more efficient with the land that's there. So of course, some uses like Armstrong and numerous others that are in our industrial districts are going to need quite a bit of land for our employees. But there's other uses such as self-service storage facilities that have virtually no employees, and they just need to have a place with the building. So, and that would be one use that would be envisioned, for the industrial district, self-service storage facilities or mini warehouses. So just in summary, in regards to this code, first, the code, what I call them, as you'll see the ordinance, I call it a matrix, and it lays out the bulk regulations, or where the building can be placed on the lot, how tall the building can be, how much lot coverage, and those types of questions. And one thing that happened, about a little bit more than a year ago, is Armstrong, they did want to expand their building, and at the time we had to do a special variance to allow them to exceed the 30% maximum of lot coverage in the industrial district. We did take care of that with the promise to come back and allow lot coverage to increase in the industrial district. So that's one thing that this ordinance does. It allows lot coverage to go up to 50% of the total lot area. And that will apply all across the board, whether the lots are 1 acre or 50 acres. The next piece here addresses reduced front yard setbacks for lots of 1 acre or less in I-1 or I-2. Right now, front yard setbacks for all lots are 40 feet, and this would create an exemption for just lots of 1 acre or less, and those front yard setbacks would be 25 feet. In regards to rear and side yard setbacks, there's no change. So the rear setbacks, if you're not adjacent to a residential district, is 20 feet. And the side yard is 0 unless you're adjacent to residential. And then you do need to have a setback there as well. So overall, this is a fairly straightforward and simple change, but we do think that changes like this will help in more efficient use of land in not just the I-2 area, the industrial district along Commercial Drive, but also those that are the historic I-1 industrial areas that are along the railroad tracks close to downtown. Those lots are a little bit smaller, and we may see some more efficient use of lots through that corridor as well. So in sum, that's what that ordinance does, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, anything from the Alderman? All right, if not, I will read the bill. Bill number 2021-03, an ordinance amending chapter 405 of the Marshfield City Code, being an article pertaining to zoning districts by amending section 405.120 industrial districts density requirements.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Foster,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Emery,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Second reading. Bill number 2021-03, an ordinance amending chapter 405 of the Marshfield City Code, being an article pertaining to zoning districts by amending section 405.120, industrial district density requirements.
Move to approve. Second.
Roll call.
Foster,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Emery,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Okay. And Scott, I'll turn it back over to you for the next one. Just a minute.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
And I apologize, Sam, can you remind me, is this part of the same code, the one where we're adding some definitions?
Yeah, for chapter 410.
no.
Okay,
No, this is the for 410. This is for the accessory building.
okay, yes, okay, sorry. So one thing that we wanted to be sure is allowing accessory buildings to be reduced as well. So this is just a text change that allows for accessory buildings to have reduced setbacks in the I-1 and I-2 code as well.
So we are adding the highlighted sentence. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right, just one sentence, that's correct.
Okay. Any question or comment from the Alderman? All right, I will read the bill. Bill number 2021-04, an ordinance amending chapter 410 of the Marshfield City Code, being an article pertaining to supplementary zoning regulations by amending section 410.010B2B, accessory building and uses, development criteria, location and placement, non-residential districts.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Foster,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Emery,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Second reading. Bill number 2021-04, an ordinance amending chapter 410 of the Marshfield City Code, being an article pertaining to supplementary zoning regulations by amending section 410.010B2B, accessory buildings and uses, development criteria, location and placement, non-residential districts.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Foster,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Emery,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Thank you very much, Scott.
You're welcome. Let me know if I need to stay on the line, otherwise I'll step away.
You are most certainly welcome to if you'd like.
Okay,
But
all right, you guys have a good evening.
Yep, there's nothing
Thank
else on
you.
here for you, Scott, so.
Okay, I'll see you guys very soon. Thank you.
Sounds great. All right, our next bill, I believe, is with Mel. Is it? Oh, there he is. Good evening, Mel.
Hello.
Would you like to walk us through this, please?
Yes. Last year we worked on updating your pre-treatment limits for your wastewater treatment facility, a collection and treatment facility. And one of the requirements of that was to update this chapter 17. And a lot of changes in it. But essentially it is to bring this section up to DNR's current requirements and to incorporate the changes in your pre-treatment limits that we've already worked through with DNR last year. And we went through this with city staff and with DNR. Like I say, we can go through any changes you want, but it adds a lot of definitions. It puts your new pre-treatment limits in there. And then another big thing that's in here is best management practices for your users to use in the event that that they are a part of your pretreatment system. So I can answer any specific questions, but that's the overview.
And basically, just to recap for you guys, this was what DNR guided this and directed us to have this done. And basically what this does is we have some industrial users out in the industrial park and beyond in other areas of town. And so when their limits get to, depending on what they're discharging, when they hit certain criteria, which we gauge off of a survey that we send out every year that they have to fill out, when it reaches a certain level, then they're required to do pre-treatment. And so what this does is it gives the city staff the teeth whenever we need to, when we get back into a corner or whenever they don't meet limits. It gives us enforcement rights to basically go in and force them to meet those limits. And so that's why there's so many changes, and the update was necessary just to, it's really for protection for our treatment plant to help ensure that we can meet our limits.
Okay. Any questions on the material from the Alderman? If not, I will read the bill. Bill number 2021-05, an ordinance amending Chapter 710 of the Marshfield City Code, being a chapter on sewer treatment system.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Rob.
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Montgomery,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Second reading, bill number 2021-05, an ordinance amending Chapter 710 of the Marshfield City Code, being a chapter on sewer treatment system.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Foster,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Montgomery,
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, all of you. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Mel.
Thanks, guys.
All right. The next item on here is city holidays for 2021. You have a page in your packet which identifies the date that goes with each holiday. This was a unique year in that Christmas fell on a Saturday, and so our policy would require that we honor that holiday on the Friday. However, Christmas Eve is already a holiday and we were already off. So in this case, what we've done is we've just taken what is in the employee handbook and identified the date that goes with each one of those holidays. So 4th of July is another one that we will not be closed on. We will be closed on Sunday, 4th of July, but we will also be closed on Monday, July 5th. So this is just informational purposes unless anyone has a question or concern with the information presented. Okay.
It says 11. There's actually 12.
No, there is 11. The New Year's Day, which is technically a 2022 holiday,
True.
falls on a Saturday, so we're celebrating it on the Friday for New Year's Eve.
Got it.
And in almost every other year, there are 11. This year is just unique.
Gotcha.
The next page here is all the regular session Board of Aldermen meeting dates, just so that they can be on your calendar. The ones that are in red at the end of the year, we generally realign these dates anyway. November and December are generally the months where we move meetings around. We're also meeting extra due to budget season. So those 3 dates where City Hall is closed at the end of the year, I imagine we will take care of in September when we generally approach this topic. And the next item on the agenda is winter goals for 2021. So in order to keep moving forward with things that we hope to accomplish, I've tried to break the year into 4 quarters and come up with a number of goals that we can work on as a board, and also city staff can work on. And I want to kind of go through what those are and what we've done so far and where we're headed, and receive input on these items. I'm not saying that these will be completely accomplished within the first 3 months of this year, but they rank as priorities in the work we're trying to achieve. So the first item in my winter goals is a review of fee schedules. This is an item that we have talked about, and several of our boards, commissions, and committees have talked about. Our city staff even started working on portions of this before COVID interrupted pretty much everything. So in order to build a proper budget, now is the time to reevaluate any of those revenue sources that we would have. And to have that done in the first quarter means when Monica does her revenue projections, she can use the most recent calculations that we would have. We have a lot of areas that do fees. So we have business fees, which Karen takes care of. We have cemetery fees, which Karen also collects, but we have a cemetery board that can address those. We have park fees, which again, our park board regularly looks at those, but there are some fees that they need to look at every year. We have, I'm just gonna put them in a big bucket here and call them construction fees. Those are our permits, our capacity, our, you name it, our curb cut, our whatever it may be. There is a very, very long list of things that go along with new or reoccurring construction, et cetera, so forth. That is the area that's kind of got started just asking some questions before COVID, and it's pretty much sat since then. So that's something I've asked them to pick back up. And then also there's the animal control fees. So in each one of those areas, I'm not asking the board to do anything. I'm basically putting that back on our boards, commissions, committees, and our city staff, saying, take a look at any of these areas that you want to address, and let's start bringing that information to the board if we want to make any changes. So that is one of the areas on my winter goals. The next area is employee manual updates. So at the time we began looking at adding new employees to our 2021 budget, I sat down and read through the employee manual that we have. I noticed two things right off the bat. One, we haven't updated it since 2013. And the other thing I noticed is about 1/3 of it is a substance abuse policy. So I took from there and started kind of looking at my own policies, which granted the places that I have worked in the past have a lot of policies. But I started kind of comparing what we had here at the city and what we have at MSU, or even in other cities when I could find an employee manual online, and trying to see what they had. And I even reached out to my general counsel at MSU and just asked why we had what we had, and learned a lot of reasoning behind the additional language or policies that we just don't have in our manual. So after that, I sat down, I asked Mayor Pro Tem Alderman Lee to sit down with me and kind of go through that same analysis to see if she shared the interest in maybe updating this. At that point, it would have been great to push this off on city staff, but we all already know that their plates are full. So instead, I kind of took this on as a pet project for myself. So what I have been doing is taking our policy manual and MSU's policy manual, and City of Ozark is online policy manual, and other policies that I can find, and doing what I can to blend them. There is some policies, several policies that are being added in that I think are very worthwhile. And I also think not waiting to do this is good, because we currently have 8 openings for employment here at the city. 4 of those are new positions created in the new budget. 4 are vacant positions. And we are already moving on getting some of those hired. So 2 of those positions have been advertised. 3 of those positions are currently working on job descriptions, figuring out supervision, things like that. 1 is pending, looking at alternatives to filling that position. One of them is in process. There's actually an applicant who's filed for a position that they are considering. And then we have 1 open position in the police department, which normally isn't advertised, but they work a little bit differently in that applicants come through on a regular basis and drop off their information, and they're considered as needed. So those are kind of where we stand on that. My hope with this is that this won't become a huge, huge undertaking. But I look for our manual to have 3 sections, and I'm going to provide each one of those sections to Sam and Karen first for review and input. And then I plan to send it to Doug and Paul to get their opinion before it'll come to the board. I hope to bring you a section each meeting from here out. And I do hope to kind of achieve this goal within the first quarter so that we can start looking at it. Again, this is a goal that I've set for our first quarter that I'd like to see us accomplish, and I'd like us to get it done as soon as possible because of the new staff coming on board. Another goal that I set was to improve communications in many ways. And of course, our next agenda item on the City Hall public opinion is a form of communication. So we'll get into that next. But we also have our 2021 budget and our growth areas. And some cities do what's called a State of the City address, which is tied in generally with the presentation of a budget document. We have another budget document that will be coming to the board in either the very end of February or the 1st of March. What that budget document does is it takes those cash balances that we have worked from, which were estimates, and it puts in the final numbers, the real cash balances as of December 31. The reason we did not know those at the time we passed the budget was, 1, we passed the budget December 10th, but the other reason is because we don't get those bank statements until sometime in January, and we don't get them all processed and reconciled until sometime in February. So it is realistic for us to say that the last meeting in February or possibly the first meeting in March, we'll be able to have solid numbers for each one of those funds for you to review. And that will then allow us to kick off the discussion of those growth areas and which ones that we want to tackle first and what steps we need to do to get there. So we're going to be working on that. Of course, one of those growth areas was website updates. That's going to be a big communicator. We have had some issues with our website trying to get information out as people are asking for it. So I do think that's a priority, but again, we will get to that all within the first quarter. It's just not going to happen right now. The other thing that I would like to do for communication is I have asked, so you may start receiving a lot more emails than you had. I have asked for the board, all members of the board, to receive a copy of agendas, not necessarily the packet, just the agenda for all other boards, committees, and commissions that are taking place, regardless of your level of participation in those. Simply for the fact that if there's something on there that you feel you need to be involved with, I want to make sure you know what's going on and have the opportunity to be involved. So you will start receiving invites if it's a Zoom invite. Most of them are. I think we have, in fact, I think almost all of ours are still meeting both ways. So we still have dual modality on everything. And then the other side of this is because none of us can possibly make everything. When we do departmental reports each month, I'd like to do a very brief recap of those board, commission, and committee meetings. So for example, the recap that I didn't go to the Finance Advisory Committee, but according to Monica, the recap that I received was that they discussed this banking bid that you're going to receive tonight, and they've recommended it for approval, and it's going to be in your packet. That would be sufficient for us to know what happened in that meeting, and we can go on. So I'm not wanting to add a lot of information in here. I just think it would be handy for all of us to know a little bit more of what those other committees, boards, and commissions are doing in case there is something that we want to be more involved with. And the last area, which is something that actually came out of our December 10th meeting, is development and planning. And we're kind of approaching this twofold. So we talked on December 10th about an area of land owned by the city that we had no official plans for, and therefore we wanted to start doing land use development planning. Sam, Dwayne from Grow Marshfield, and Scott Hansen all joined together and started doing the preliminary work needed in order to build a foundation on that. They have since looped me in on all the work they've done, and I think they've done a great job of coming up with certain zoning options, with 4 or 5 different final disposition options. But they recommend, and I completely agree, that the next step would be probably building a subcommittee under the Planning and Zoning Commission, which would not just be planning and zoning members. It would include other members of the community and the region with varying expertise. So for example, we could probably reach out to representation from SIMCOG to include on this, where they could help us with market research. We could include citizens in this committee. There's still some questions on who becomes the committee, but nonetheless, of building something that can come up with options that eventually would run back through the board, though instead of having to take on the entire project, we would take on options that have already been criticized by a very well qualified group of individuals. Simultaneously, I have previously provided you with an economic development policy from a city up north in Kansas City. Grow Marshfield brought in a gentleman who provided some education. Him and several others actually provided education on some of the financing options that will help us with development. This includes everything from your TIFs, your SIDs, USDA, CDBG. We discussed it all. Unfortunately, the timing of that training did not work well for any of you, and so I would like to loop back around and see if we would like to schedule that training for us individually so that we can get this portion of our development rolling. I do think that us having an understanding of what we are comfortable with investigating with certain development options gives us a much better foundation if we were approached with a development and asked to help in some way. We would know, 1, what our options were, and 2, what does that look like for Marshfield. So I really do think this is a key part, and that particular part is 100% the 5 of us here. Well, of course, there will be city staff involved as well, but I think that is definitely a board level action. So I would be interested in seeing if we can get that moving again. And if you all would be interested in me looking at having the same gentleman come back in, or another gentleman could come in, whatever your appetite is there for the level of education. Is there any questions on those items or things that I should consider differently, any directions I'm going that may not be what the board was envisioning.
Since we know we're gonna have at least one new board member, maybe two, should that training maybe be put off until we have a new board set?
That's possible. We can push this into the second quarter. These are policy level, more or less, it comes out with a catalog of here's all of our options and here's how we would apply them. So absolutely, we can put that one off, or
Seems like a lot to ask of someone that's
Yeah.
not going to be here long.
Yeah.
gonna be here to do it, you know, that's a lot of time to invest.
Okay. Is that the general, Mark, do you agree?
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking, to put it
Okay.
off till April at least.
Move to April, got it. I know I rattled on for a while there. So are there any other areas that I need to consider? Okay, then we will continue on. As far as the subcommittee under planning and zoning, I do plan to give continual updates as that comes together. Again, I think our P&Z group will do a great job of helping us get that committee together and kind of chairing that, especially since they own our growth plan. That is their comprehensive plan, and I really want to make sure that anything that comes out of there is definitely within that scope.
I think it is important to talk about just a little bit about, you know, the other purpose of that group extending beyond the 23 acres. So
That's a good point.
Or feel me to, but
So we originally talked about one particular tract, but Sam brought up this week that this would be a great exercise to expand. So after we have accomplished this goal, hopefully we will know where we're headed, and we should start planning that northern corridor, which we have a very generalized idea, which is provided to us in the growth plan. But there's a lot of detailed work that goes into the rest of the story that would become our land use plan up there. So we'll see how this first goes. We'll see if there are changes that need to be made, and then we'll just let them keep doing what they do best and get a solid plan before the growth happens. And that takes us down to City Hall public opinion discussion. And this is brought over from the December 10th meeting as well. And I will turn it to open discussion as far as this item is concerned, with the modality preferred, timing, open for anything.
Yeah, so I want to understand what precedent we're setting here. What are the guidelines, and what makes this different than some other projects that we would be taking on in a significant enough way that we it's actually two parts. Let me finish this part. That we would make decisions based on that kind of approach versus the study that we have done and typically and are elected to do on our typical decisions. So that's what concerns me. I think a second level of my question is I'm trying to understand how this came into question, and I'm trying to understand how the budget committee formed an opinion about it with incorrect information about the factors as they stated in their opinion about the budget. And so, once you turn a decision, instead of making one or following up on a decision that has been made, if you determine that you're going to pick another course to drive the decision, I think it needs to be very well thought out about how you're going to get a fair representation, and then how often, what would be the triggers for you to do it the next time.
Okay.
So I think all those things we need to give caution to. It's not that I'm not open to it. I think it's fine. I think it's unnecessary. I think we've done our homework. I think I've heard questions since the new administration that are questions that were already answered. I've heard people wonder why we didn't do something that we have done. And so I think that just points to the danger if you're going to do this, if you're going to insist that we somehow go to the public for this decision. I think we need to be careful about the dangers of not handling that in the right way.
Okay.
I don't see it as asking the public for a decision. I see it as getting them involved. What's their, this is their city. They have a right to voice their opinion on it. And, we sometimes they don't have the facts on it, but when it's presented to them, they see why we've made the decision. But if they don't get involved, they don't see those facts. I want to know what their opinions are. I want, granted, I'm only going to be here till April, but, I've always wanted to know how they feel, what their opinions are. Doesn't change what our facts are. It doesn't, but I would still like to know how the citizens feel.
Okay.
It doesn't make our decision.
It was mentioned at the last meeting. I think Stacy had said maybe we should approach this as educating the public.
Mm-hmm.
Because, regardless of public opinion, we need more office space. And unless we should be asking the public if they want us to hire more people.
Right.
But that's a major part of our budget this year. And the future city hall was purchased with this in mind, that there would need to be space.
And there's analysis that confirms.
So yeah, I guess I'm just not sure what feedback we're looking for from the public when decisions have already been made to put this in motion. And like I said, regardless, if the public doesn't want a new city hall, then we'll have employees without office space potentially. Some has to be done.
Yeah, we're already at the point of sharing office space.
Yeah, so that's what I think is the danger is look, we're giving people the expectation if we're not careful. And I think anytime you go out with a question like this, you can't be careful enough. You've created an expectation that anybody, to an individual, what they express, they now expect that's what we would follow. And that's not why we were elected. And Mark is right. We've been through this. We did the study. We were very diligent about it. There are very specific and good and really reasons that everybody acknowledges. We have to have the space. And now here's another danger is, we're not just invested in that property with the intention of divesting of other properties to save money, but we've invested a lot of staff time. And what we're talking about is, to get proper public opinion in a usable, actionable way. And I'm not saying for something like this, when you do it for something like a community development or a growth plan, right? That's critical. But that costs tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes $100,000 or more, to be able to get it in a way that you can crunch that information, that feedback from the community into something that truly is actionable and there's ownership because of the way it's gathered. And that costs a lot of time and money and and city staff resources to do that. And you know, if we were starting from scratch, if we didn't already have plans, if we hadn't already made this investment, if we didn't already have a financial roadmap to get there, and then behind that, the ability to divest of the property you guys are sitting in right now, and others, and consolidate and have room to grow. And in the meantime, when we don't need it, have room to rent, to continue to build financial resources. You know, if all that weren't in place, only then it would still be just well, maybe we go out. You know, I think it's on us to do what we did, which is do the space needs analysis, work to see what was available. We found something that I can't imagine how it could be more ideal, given with a realistic sort of expectation of what you could have somebody move out of, and then we move right into. We are probably 90% there of the staff that we have. We're move-in ready practically. I mean, the way the space is divided, let me put it that way. We probably need to vacuum or something, but I'm saying that space is divided into offices for almost everybody that we have that we would accommodate immediately, and very set up to be retrofitted for the growth that we need. So here again, I'm just looking at city resources and money, and the time that it would take, the confusion of expectations that we just don't need to do. I'm all for public opinion when we can get it, but you know, I think that another point that Mark made is right. And I don't know if he meant to make this point, but I think it is. You know, should we go ask the cities, the citizens' opinion about whether we should hire somebody or not? Hire 4 people or not? Hire 10 people? We need to be the ones. We are elected to do that work and do that job well, and I think we did. Now, if it goes back to public education and it's carefully framed to educate why we're doing it, that's altogether different. And I think that's completely appropriate. I think that's fine. Just in case there is somebody that has been misinformed and maybe has doubt about it because of misinformation. And let's face it, we are in an era right now where disinformation is much more available than real information. And you can ask anybody, whatever anybody thinks about any particular topic, they're each going to think that the other doesn't have the right information, right? So educational, I'm all for it to show the evidence behind why we have the need, that we did the space needs analysis, which we did. We're already invested in the property, which we are. And it was a complicated road to do that. And so that's where I am. I think I'm with Vicki in terms of let's educate, let's make sure that people understand, but anything else is a false expectation.
So what would be some ideas of how we can do education in the COVID era when we can't bring them all here, we can't get them all in one group?
Well, what were you thinking?
I'm not.
It was your idea, right?
Yep. Was this
Okay,
my
well, what were you thinking?
No, this was not my idea. But I do like the idea of an educational session.
But how do we get people to attend?
That's the question, right?
Does it necessarily have to be something attended? Can it not just be
Made
communicated in writing? You know, there's a precedent for sending out communications from time to time with the water bills.
Okay.
And probably that's the most targeted way to communicate to citizens, because most citizens get a water bill.
Are you thinking just a special session meeting? More or less, where who would present this information? Kind of
I don't, Mayor, are you asking me, Mayor?
I'm just generally asking.
Okay.
Sam?
I mean, if it's a document, if what
Yeah.
Rob's talking about is putting a written document together, you know, I mean, Monica and I can try to put something together that shows the history as far as, you know, what Rob's talked about as far as the space needs analysis and the timing of that. You know, we could try to put something together. I don't know, right? Because this is just off the cuff, but I mean, I guess we could try to put something together that identifies the need for additional space. Beyond that, I don't know what else. I mean, we put whatever you guys wanted to put in there, right? I mean, obviously be vetted or brought back to a meeting to put out whatever we wanted to do, but you know, from the financial aspect, I don't know how much what you want to put in there for, you know what I'm saying? I don't know what the just off the cuff, I don't know what all education. I mean, it's an open book and we can share everything about it. I just don't know what all to try to put into a document that would go out.
I would assume just a summary of, you know, I mean, it's gone on for, I don't know, what, 4 or 5 years. But I mean, there was a lot of foresight in knowing that we would be growing. So, but just a summary of from that to, for, you know, looking forward to future growth, making plans, purchasing a property with that intent in mind, remodeling a property, and also showing the savings involved. And, you know, it would be cheaper to remodel in most cases than to build. We also were intended on consolidating, as Rob noted, in order to divest of property and hopefully save citizens money. You know, just something documenting the need as well as the forethought and conservative approach that was taken to make a good decision.
Well, and do we? And so first of all, do we need that? And if we need to, then I'd like to work with Sam and probably Dwayne Lavery to talk about those positives, and then look to Monica for any blanks that need to be filled in as far as investments and so forth. So count on her as well. Not necessarily make her sit through unless she wanted to, just sort of planning meetings to sort of explain the process, the road to where we are now. And as Mark said, what are the benefits and what was the rationale and justifications for doing this and the needs to do it. I'd like to take part in that with Sam, and again, I suggest Dwayne Lavery.
Stacy, I think this was your agenda item. Was it? What? The public discussion?
No.
City Hall? Okay.
No. But I think the big area of heartburn in the community is not the need or space, it's the dollar amounts. And I think in that document, laying that out in black and white, this is what we've invested, this is where we are at right now. This is the plan to get from A to B to C.
Yeah.
And black and white in true facts, all in one spot where they can see it, no questions asked, it is right there, is another piece of that education puzzle.
Okay. All in one spot. And I think it will be important that we make sure we have our finalized numbers before we're putting this together. from Monica. So,
I mean, I would think we could just link this to the webpage.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I don't know that there would be any need to do anything beyond that unless we feel strongly we need to mail stuff out.
Yeah, we may be able to speak with the newspaper and
Facebook page.
yeah, of course, Facebook page, get some traffic. Okay, so we want an educational document that gives all the information, the timeline of what took place, the motivations for what took place, the investment that's already incurred, the forward-looking the goal setting that was done to get there, the financial overview of the remodel, a comparison of remodel to construction. Am I missing? Luckily, this is recorded and I can go back and listen to it again, but okay, so my notes are fairly close. So we will definitely get with, and Sam, I'll let you coordinate, and Rob wants to be involved and loop Dwayne in. And we'll get back after Monica's had time to get in and get resettled and kind of work forward from there. And then we'd be looking at possibly putting something out on the website. So we may need to work with Melanie and see what our capabilities are there. It may almost be best if we use like a click here, takes you to a different page.
Yeah, we can do, it'll have to be something like, I mean, we can put something, we can put a link on there that it'll take it right to it, but I mean, it'll have a little narrative at the bottom, what it's for, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, something that's functional, accessible. Okay, anything else on this topic? All right, that brings us to future agenda items. I have the SKEEP grant coming back. And I am hoping that the first section of the employee manual will be brought to you in the next agenda. Any other topics, items we need to add? Okay. If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
See y'all.
Thank you.